listening to the Project Management Podcast. We bring project management topics to beginners and experts. Find us on the web at pmpodcast.blogspot.com or send your emails to pmpodcast@gmail.com. Hello and welcome to the third show. This show was recorded on the 17th of September 2005. In it, we'll talk about project failure. And I now have to go and get some Kleenex because I'm sure I'll start crying in just a minute. In my last show, I said that this show was going to be the second part of my review of the 2005 PMI leadership meeting in Toronto, Canada. But due to current events, I have changed the topic for today, and we will talk about project failure. In my resume, I sometimes mention that I have successfully implemented all assigned projects over the past 5 years. Of course, I was lying when I said that, because in truth, I had successfully completed all projects over the complete 15-year project management career. But since nobody would believe that, I cut it down to 5 years. I don't really know why I have been this successful. My best guess is that it's probably a combination of just plain good luck, a certain talent for project management, and simply being assigned the right projects, those projects that weren't meant to fail. But now, it looks like I'll have to delete that sentence from my resume because one of my projects is failing, and probably has failed. Let me give you the background of this. I work in the IT department of a bank, well, financial institution really. We are roughly 130 people, of which half are software developers who support about 120 applications. We have a very quick turnaround for a financial institution. We have a software release every month. And of course there's a hell of a lot of risk involved with this quick turnaround when you just push out software every 30 days. Testing, on the other hand, to mitigate this risk is quite minimal. People test the new features. People make sure that, well, it's now no longer green, we've changed it to blue. They make a quick test. Is it blue? Yes, it's blue. Perfect. Let's move on. I got real work to do here. I don't need to test this software. There are really no regression tests in all of this. By doing the project that has now failed, we were hoping to establish some sort of a suite of system tests that we could run during the release weekend. Until today, we've been able to create a basic environment test. We were able to create a suite of smoke tests, and we have about 75 manual user acceptance test scripts that really test just the availability of the most critical functions in the applications. So these 75 tests, we went to the users and said, hey, if you show up on Monday morning and you need it to work with the system, what's the most critical stuff that you need functioning? So we have that, that's available, that's here and ready. And it took about a year to create all of this. My original plan, however, said that at this point in the project, we should have a finished and automated suite of all of the tests that I mentioned and much more. As of yesterday, I have decided that this project has failed and is stuck with absolutely nowhere to go. Trust me, I was absolutely pissed about the fact that I had failed. I was grouchy, I was bad-tempered, and just generally in a sour mood about this. I needed a shrink to get me through this, some sort of a psychologist. So I went to Dr. Google, and I surfed around. And in the end, of all places, I ended up on the pages of Alcoholics Anonymous, where I found their original 12-step program. And, you know, the 12-step program, it's nothing more than a methodology, right? So what does a good project manager do? He reads the methodology and then he decides which parts he wants to take and which parts he wants to leave. And frankly, for me, only the first 2 steps, really, they helped. Here they are. First step, we admitted that we were powerless over alcohol that our lives had become unmanageable. Second step, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Okay, yeah, the first one, absolutely. I admitted that I was powerless over the failure of this project, and I admitted that the project had just become unmanageable, that it was going nowhere. And I also came to believe, step number 2, that a power greater than myself, let's see, executives, the sponsor, the business users, that only they could restore this project back to its sanity. So that helped me get over my just complete frustration of having to face my first failed project. My failure, however, got me thinking, and I wanted to know, is it really true that 70% of all IT projects fail? Because with my track record, it's statistically wrong. So, back to Google, start surfing around. One of the things that I found is probably the most widely quoted statistic on project failure. It is the Standish Group's Chaos Report. They've been doing that since 1994, and they have analyzed thousands of projects, and they have come up with 3 categories on how projects succeed or fail. The first category is, of course, a successful project, meaning that the project is completed on time and on budget with all features and functions as originally specified. Then there are the challenged projects. The project is completed and operational, but over budget, late, and with fewer features and functions than initially specified. And third, that's the failed projects. The project is cancelled before completion or never even implemented. So much for these 3 categories. And when you look through the Standish reports over the years, the chaos reports, what you'll see is good news, folks. What Standish saw was a massive increase in projects that were executed. And at the same time, the percentage of successful projects has increased a lot more than the percentage of those projects that have failed based on these 3 categories that they've had. And a lot of thank you goes, of course, to project management and the according processes behind it. So project management really, really helps to make a project successful. Yeah, we all knew that, right? But what are the critical success factors for these projects? Well, the Chaos Report, the original Chaos Report, talked about the Chaos 10, the 10 critical success factors to make a project succeed. And when I looked at those, I had my big aha experience, which really, really explained why my project was failing. And all I had to do was look at the first 4 of these 10. What they did is they also graded them, and they gave them a number, and the first 4, they add up to 60% of why projects fail or succeed. And here are the first 4. Executive support, 18%. User involvement, 16%. Experienced project manager, 14%. And clear business objectives, 12%. No wonder my project is failing. I have no real executive support, 18% right gone. The user involvement is absolutely minimal. They don't give a dingo's kidneys about testing. They have real work to do. And clear business objectives? Yeah, not really. Okay, so 46% of my critical success factors right there gone. Experienced project manager? Yeah, okay, I'd say I'm experienced, so we're good there. But the other 46, bingo. That's why my project is failing. Could I have done more to get executive support? Could I have done more to get the users involved and to get clearer business objectives? Sure I could, but I really tried my absolute best to make this project work. Oh, and by the way, this is not the first time that my company has tried this. I'm actually the third person who's failing with this particular project. So overall, I now understand much better why this project is failing. Let's take a few looks at examples of percentages. I started out this search trying to figure out, is it really 70% of projects that fail, of IT projects? Well, I found on Ganthead.com, I found an ad that said, more than 60% of software projects in the United States fail, and poor requirements management is one of the top 5 reasons. Okay. I found a paper on project success and failure. What is success? What is failure? And how can you improve your odds for success? In that particular paper, and I'll put a link onto my blog, they talk about 30% of IT projects that fail. And I went back to the Standish report, to the Chaos report, and I found the 2004 third quarter Chaos Spotlight. It's just a one-page PDF giving you the basics of it all. They say 18% failed, 29% were successful, and 53% were challenged. So according to the longest standing report that we have out there, still over half of IT projects that we perform are challenged. Interesting. Well, and just about as many different percentage numbers that you'll get the same number of reasons why. The Chaos 10, like I said, starts out by saying the executive support, 18% of that is the reason why projects fail. So very big number on executive support there. Lauren J. May wrote an article called Major Causes of Software Project Failures, and he starts out there by saying that poor user input is the first one that's going wrong. And then we have an article by James Jang, Gary Klein, and Joseph Balloon called Ranking of System Implementation Success Factors. That one appeared in the Project Management Journal in 1996. Okay, it's a little while ago, but generally speaking, it's probably still standing, what they say. And they say, number one reason, clearly defined goals. So, take your own pick. I mean, anywhere from, 18% to 60%? And any real reason that you can find, you can put it right there at the top of your list. Another thing that I realized as I was doing this little research here is, project failure is a taboo. I have yet to find a project manager who walks up to me and openly admits, my project has failed. I have done my part in this, and I have openly admitted my failure in a project. So I belong to these 18 or however many percent of IT projects that fail. Now, I want to hear from you, my dear listener. Drop me a line, send me an email to pmpodcast@gmail.com and tell me about your failed projects. Tell me why you think they failed. Tell me with which of the studies that I have mentioned here do you agree or disagree. Well, is executive support more critical than user requirements? What have you found on your projects? Why did they fail? And what could you have done differently in order to not have them fail, to be successful? But here is what I want you to do most importantly. Whenever I manage a project, my focus is first and foremost on people, because it's people management really, not project management. So, tell me, how do you keep your sanity after a failed project? How do you motivate yourself to continue? Do you just shrug your shoulders and say, oh, well, you win a few, you lose a few, and you move on? Do you go out and get drunk with your project team, or do you sulk for weeks at end? Let me know how you deal with failure, What works for you? Because nowhere in all these studies do they look at the people behind the failed projects. I couldn't find anything on that. Nobody talks about the fact, well, this is stressful, this is annoying, this is aggravating. If you have a failed project, you have to admit to yourself you failed. You weren't as good as you thought you were. How do people cope? How do we, project managers, cope? Because after all, if the statistics are true, and depending on which one you believe, 3 out of 10 project managers will face a failed project. And somehow they get over it. They continue. They move on to the next project. But what is the process? How do they get over it? What do project managers do in order to move on and go to the next project? And also, what does this mean to their career? I mean, how do people look at them in the future in the same company? Well, he's had a failed project, can't be much good, can he? Drop me a line, pmpodcast@gmail.com, and tell me what you think. Even better, if you have the opportunity to make an MP3 recording, make about a 1 to 2 minute recording of your thoughts, send it to me, and I'll be more than happy to put you here on the Project Management Podcast for that. Yeah, that's about it for today. Thank you very much for listening. In my next show, I will go back to the promised review of my 3rd day at the 2005 PMI Leadership Seminar in Toronto. As always, you can find us on the web at pmpodcast.blogspot.com, or you can send your emails to pmpodcast@gmail.com. And finally, we have this. Today it's a quote from Jones and Capers' book, Patterns of Software Systems Failure and Success. There are myriad ways to fail on a project, but there are only a few ways to succeed. With that, let's all stay on the path to success and sanity. Until next time.